What would you say that you want to make sure folks walk away from today's particular session out of the three that we have coming up?
Right. Yes. What we're kind of focused on here today, I mean, all of our sessions are really going to be around the adoption process, not so much around like the data science and, the actual, analytics that go into it, but really how do people use analytics and what do you have to have in place around that from a cultural standpoint to become a more data-driven organization.
We're here because we want to figure out how to talk to the people who don't get it yet. I thought, well, let's think about the big macro question. What is the pain point?
There is a lot of similarities, regardless of the industry, sometimes even regardless of the maturity of the organization. Some of the very common themes are analytics really isn't for me. That's kind of, if I could abstract it a little bit, somebody else should be doing it.
As you have all shared here, thank you very much for your inputs. We want to share a couple of things that we noticed in particular. And we'll start with the way people tend to phrase things, which is number one, this is not my problem. When people say this is not my problem, how often do we take the time to be curious how we can reinterpret them saying this to see how they can have ownership in that?
Kind of the flip side almost of this is not my problem. In that scenario, it's like, well, this is something else somebody has to do. But when kind of almost challenged about what should they do about it, they'll say, well, I'm not the problem. I just want to know what's in it for me. You do want to be able to provide a clear value proposition.
This is what they might be saying, but what they're probably expressing in that process is that they feel confident in their expertise to perhaps forget that experts have a blind spot. And so whenever I hear the cue of like, oh, you know what, Monica, we're good because we already figured out everything, I'm like, warning sign, because if you are indeed an expert, as all of you probably know, there's probably a lot of things we need to actually even go back and ask more, because the moment we assume we have figured out, there's always something nuanced and something different.
Who isn't too busy these days? I mean, I think we've all said this at one point or another. Sometimes this can be very daunting because you're talking about, well, we're going to be data driven. Therefore, that will require time I don't have. This is like the single biggest point of failure that I've seen across organizations. I have talked to so many organizations that say, we built something, we bought something, we rolled it out, and nobody used it. I have heard that over and over again, and hearing that so many times over so many years was really the genesis of the idea of focusing on culture and people rather than technology.
See you later.
All right, bye everybody.